Alright, so Peter Pan collar. We're gonna trace.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just missed the first thing.
Okay. This is a great recording so far. Alright, so on the lower half of your paper, you're gonna trace the back sloper. You always want to try to line up the center back or the center front with the grid on the paper. It just makes things easier, cleaner. Shoulder level as well. I don't think we need it now, but I just like to mark it anyways. Okay, so like I said, this pattern, to make the Peter Pan collar, it calls for a dartless shoulder, so we're gonna eliminate our dart. So all you guys are gonna do is measure the width of your dart, which should end up being about 1/4 of an inch, give or take.
You can record this.
I am recording it.
Oh, okay, no.
Hopefully it comes out okay. And then you're going to, we did this before, but we're gonna mark whatever the width of your dart is at the end of the shoulder to eliminate it from there. Sometimes you would move, like take a little from the inner neck and then a little from the outer shoulder armhole, but we're not gonna do that because we're already dropping it for the collar later. So I'm just gonna cross this out so that I know that it no longer exists. And I'm gonna blend with my French curve a new armhole, and when I do this, I usually use the French curve to either, like I have it blend in so that it's flush by the time I get to my notches. If I just blended it to the shoulder level, it would be wonky, so we want to blend it into the area where the notches are.
Sorry, what was the measurement? The width of the dart?
The width of your dart, which mine is like 1/4 of an inch. Yours could be a little bigger or a little smaller. And then I'm crossing this out too so that I know that I'm not using that line. Are we good or do we need a minute?
I'm
Good.
Good? Okay, so next we want to overlap our front bodice with our back bodice. So we could have done this just with the slopers at the same time if we had a dartless sloper, but we don't, so that's why we're doing it this way. So what they want us to do is line up the shoulders, and mine actually lines up seamlessly at the neck and the armhole. Is everyone else's lining up pretty well or no?
Yeah. Whoa.
Good job, Maddie.
I'm so
Kind of
right
good
now.
job, Ryan. How off is it?
Like, not too much. I think I can fix it.
Okay, is it matching at the neckline?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the more important part for this. So we're going to, I'm gonna let go of this for a second. We're gonna trace this in a minute. We're gonna keep the sloper lined up at the neckline, and then we're gonna move the armhole shoulder intersection of the front bodice 1/4 inch downward. So we want to measure that 1/4 inch and mark it so we know where to move our sloper to. So again, we're going down 1/4 inch just at the armhole shoulder intersection, not at the neckline intersection. So, can you guys pause for a second and look up? So I have it lined up with the shoulder. I'll move this, and all I'm gonna do is keep the neck lined up and pivot so that the shoulder is now matching that 1/4 inch mark, right? Once you do that, then you're gonna go ahead and trace your front sloper. Same thing, like I would trace the top half of it. You're not gonna need the rest. The main thing is just that you have like center front and the neckline and shoulder traced. Oops. No. Okay, so do we all have that traced?
Not yet.
If you need to blend the neckline a little bit, you can so that it has a nice smooth curve, but we're gonna be lowering it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna move forward, but I'll repeat myself if we need. So we're gonna be lowering the back neckline 1/8 inch. At the shoulder, where the two shoulders come together, we're gonna lower it 1/8 inch. And then at the center front neckline, we're gonna lower it 1/4 inch. Okay? So you wanna just take your ruler, and I've noticed some of you will just mark 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch, and then use the French curve to connect them. You don't wanna do that because a lot of times the area in between doesn't end up being 1/8 inch. So you do wanna line up your ruler and do those continuous markings at 1/8 inch so you know it's consistent, and then you'll connect them using the French curve. So I'm going to be measuring a consistent 1/8 inch on the back neckline, but then once I get to the shoulder, I can use my French curve to connect from the 1/8 inch shoulder drop to the 1/4 inch neckline drop. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, it'll make more sense once I have it drawn too, so I can show you. And again, I will repeat myself. So it's an 1/8 inch center back, 1/8 inch shoulder, and then 1/4 inch drop for our center front. What do you need?
Oh no, I'm just trying to read the numbers, that's it.
That's what, okay. 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch.
Okay.
So the center front is 1/4 inch, the shoulder and the back center neckline are 1/8 inch. like I mentioned, I dropped the back neckline a consistent 1/8 of an inch. I marked it with the ruler all the way, and then I smoothed it out with my French curve. I also crossed out my old neckline so that I know that that's a line I don't need anymore. And then when we get to the front, because this one changes size, you don't have to like measure consistently along the edge with your ruler. You can just take your French curve and find a good angle where it'll taper and create a nice curve going from 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. If you can find one curve that's perfect, that's great. Sometimes I can't, so I'll use multiple curves. And just remember, we want to square our neckline off with the center front. So basically it should flatten out before we get to center front, so that if this was reflected, it would create a nice curve and not come to a point at the center front. You guys need me to repeat anything?
So now with the French curve, we just find a curve, or we attach the 1/8 to the corner.
Yeah, so you should have a mark at each, and then you'll just find a spot on the French curve that makes a nice neckline. So you want to avoid ever, like, if you're tapering out, or can you say tapering out? I don't know. If you're going from 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch, you want to find a curve that doesn't get narrower than 1/8 of an inch. I've seen on a couple of your samples, it'll get narrow and then widen, and that creates kind of a funky neckline. So it should only get bigger from the shoulder.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes sense. So I know some of us are still drafting this, but if you're waiting for the next step is going to be to draft the general shape of our collar. So this is going to be basically the same thing we did to create a facing. We're just going to start to measure from our new neckline an inch, and we're going to lightly draw a curve that goes from the center back to the center front, an inch away from our neckline, and that's going to be the basis for our collar, and then we'll shape it so that it is more accurate to a Peter Pan collar after we draft those markings. So again, that's just an inch wide. Still recording.
Yes.
Okay. How long is it?
14 minutes.
Okay. Do you want to stop it
Mhm.
and then we'll start again in a minute?